All right, folks, we're gonna do our weekly update. I'm gonna take you guys around the property a bit, kind of show you what's been going on this week and some of the highlights. And if you're not a member of FromTheField.tv, that's where I do all of my daily vlogs. And this year, I'm trying to do a weekly update for YouTube and give you guys a little bit of a flavor of what's going on there. So let's get into it. So starting here in the greenhouse, this is the passive solar greenhouse. We've been working on this for a while now. It's now pretty much done. I mean, you can see a few things like some electrical finishings that aren't totally finished. We got to put the raised beds in here, but as far as the structure, it's 90% done. So still waiting on that door. Obviously got our windows in. We've got our deck up, which is amazing. And so I've talked about this in previous videos, but what's going to happen on the deck here is this is going to be the nursery portion of the greenhouse, and all the food growing is going to happen down below. So I've got a bit of stuff going on up there, my tomatoes, onions, peppers, some celery, some early stuff. That's about it, not a ton, but yeah, we've got that going on. The deck, the concrete is still not fully cured. That's why we still have some of this rigging under here. But once it's fully cured, which might just be a couple more days, then it'll be totally out of here. And we started building the raised beds in here. So we've been chipping away at these all week, or actually no, just for the last 2 days. And this is all rough sawn timber, or rough sawn fir. And they're 2 feet deep. And this was milled just from my neighbor's mill. And what we had to do to fill these with soil is bring the skid steer in here. So we put in one bed, got it in place, got it all level, and then we started filling it up with soil with the skid steer. So I'm driving the skid steer through the door, filling it up. This took 5 bucket loads of the skid steer to fill up. And this soil is absolutely amazing. This is some soil that I basically have mined off my property from the base of a water draw. It does have a lot of rock in it, like everything here, but it's really nice sandy loam, lots of organics in it. And it turns out I have lots of this soil on the property. So it was kind of one of the big discoveries this week, was that I had all this soil here and I didn't realize it, because all of the areas that I want to garden in, there's not really much soil, and so I've got to bring all the soil in. And I spent some time kind of talking to some people in the area about where I could get topsoil. I found some places, I found a guy who could drive it up, and then all of a sudden I find this huge deposit of soil on one of these road ditches I was working on. That's another thing we'll talk about. I'll show you. I've been actually spending pretty much most of my week on my driveway, which is not the most exciting thing for a farmer, but it has to be done. And it, you know, one of my biggest themes this year is focusing on tasks that have a compounding effect, so that they will allow me to do other things in perpetuity. And these road projects that I'm going to show you were absolutely necessary, even just to get the soil on the farm. We'll go and talk about that a little bit. Get all this in here. It has to be done. So that's where I've spent most of my time this week. But we have started with all this, and this is coming along good. We have all of our FRP panels, or FRPs, fiberglass panels on. That's what all this white is in here. And this stuff is a great material because it's waterproof. So you often see this kind of thing in slaughterhouses or even hospitals, because it makes the walls washable. Water just drips off. It's fantastic for this kind of environment. I think we showed it last week, but the climate battery is all finished and running, and so that is now taking heat from the top of the greenhouse and sucking it under the ground here, and it's warming up this thermal mass, and our nighttime temperatures have been really stabilizing, which has been really fantastic. So what's going to be happening here over the next week is we'll finish up these raised beds. There's going to be 2 more in here, and then we're going to have another raised bed under that balcony there, and then another raised bed along the wall there. And Our first batch of chickens are coming along nicely. They're getting a lot bigger. You can now see the roosters with the dark fur, or the dark feathers, and the chicks with the light feathers. So those are coming along. We've got another batch coming. We're planning to have maybe 50 to 60 birds. Violet, come on, my love. But yeah, there's still a few more things to do in here. We'll be putting some shelving on the walls in here eventually. We've got some trim to go around these windows, and that door in there is going to get replaced. Just minor things, but we're pretty much at a point where this greenhouse is operational. So let's go outside and check out some other stuff. So next coming week, we're about to get really busy. I've got 3 new guys coming on to start construction, and so this is where our house is going to be built. I've shown this in many videos before, but what I've been doing this week is when we excavated this site for the house, I had a huge, probably the largest excavator you can get with the largest rock hammer, to come and hammer out all this rock. And I've got this huge deposit of rock over here, which is, you know, rock on this property is kind of a burden and a blessing at the same time. But in this case, it's been a blessing because I've been using all this loose rock to do a lot of these road fixes that we'll go and look at in a minute. So I've had my mini excavator stationary down here. I come in with the skid steer with a rock bucket on it, and then I just dump loads of rock on there, and then I take it to where I need to spread it around on the road projects. So we're going to be preparing this site for work. Next week when the guys arrive, we're going to be clearing out some of this area here so we can put tool trailers and more machinery and stuff like that down here, put a plan shack for them for the drawings and all that. So getting all that ready, and I'm just trying to not scar the land anymore, but it's kind of like the old saying, you can't really make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. But this is an area that I'm trying to not touch too much, because I eventually want to interplant an orchard into this site, and this is also going to be the site where we're going to run our chickens. And so with our chickens, come over to me this way, we're going to have a summer chicken area, which will be here, but we'll also be able to run the chickens through the gardens with electric fencing, no problem. But what we're also going to do is have a winter chicken area, which is going to be in here. So this area is going to be a series of 30-inch by 25-foot beds, standard market garden beds, and got to bring in a lot of soil to do that, which I have here now, which is amazing. And then we'll be putting that's great, Violet. We'll be putting a caterpillar tunnel here that's 16 feet wide. It'll be covering 4 beds wide, and it'll cover 2 groups. So it'll be a 55-foot tunnel. And then we'll have our winter chicken coop connected to the greenhouse, so that in the winter time the chickens can run around and scratch on the ground in the greenhouse. So that's the plan for this area, but there's not really much happening there at the moment. Let's go check out, I want to show you something up here. Yeah, it is, eh?
Yep.
So this is an area that was just a lot of rose bushes and just a lot of the bushy perennials that are around the property. We've cleared this, and this is going to be the site where we're going to put a lot of the perennials that I have started over there. We can go look at them in a second, but we're going to be planting a lot of the perennial berry bushes that I pulled from my original home in Kelowna that I now sold. But I've got raspberries, goji berries, sea buckthorns, grapes, all kinds of berry perennials are going to go in here. And we've got water access now. It's a bit of a mess, but this is going to be where a lot of these plants are going to go. And one thing you'll notice right now is if you look at these panels over here, we just, as of today, we turned our panels to spring and fall mode. So they had been in a really steep slope all winter, and now we've angled them back, and it's quite amazing how it actually has increased the solar production on it. But our solar system, I've talked about this many times before, but it's very over-spec'd for what we're doing here. And the reason I did that is that I sized it for winter, so that in the winter I would have what we need, and in the summer we would overproduce. So right now we're overproducing by about noon every day, unless there's a heavy load on the system, like if I'm charging my car or something like that. Our system goes into a float state by noon. So we have now like 6-7 hours where we have nowhere to use that power. So what we did this week was we actually fired up the cisterns up the hill. So I have a 16,000 liter cistern system about 85 feet above us, where I'm standing right here, that I pump water to from the well, and then that water gravity feeds. So we're still getting a little bit below freezing at night, but it's not enough to freeze the pipes. And so we're getting ready to start gardening. We're running water. Things are still a mess, of course, but now we have running water, and that's another thing that we can dump electricity into when we have it, is just push water uphill. And in the long term, that's going to be something that I do a lot around the property, is I'll be pumping water from one area to another uphill to gravity feed, and also set ourselves up for fire protection. I'm standing on another excavation site. This is where we're going to put what I'm calling our special high tunnel. It's going to be a high tunnel with a insulated concrete wall around it, foundation wall, with a radiant floor that's going to be connected to our wood boiler system. And so what my plan is with this is to have 6 raised beds, 2 feet high, build a fir, just like the ones in the passive solar greenhouse. Lots of soil, and this will be where we do our winter kale, spinach, carrots, beets, cool weather crops that we can keep going all winter long, even lettuce. And what the plan is going to be is to keep it at 1 degree Celsius. So you know, it'll get as warm as it gets during the day, but at nighttime we'll put just enough heat in here to keep it above freezing, so that we can keep these crops in good condition. You know, crops like lettuce, for example, don't handle freezing that well. Spinach can handle freezing nights, kale no problem, carrots no problem, but I'd like to have lettuce all winter, and so we're going to be keeping the ground just above 1 degree, or just at 1 degree, so that the lettuce will survive and we can keep cool weather crops in here. So we started building these raised beds as well. In fact, that's underway right now. And so it's kind of hard to see at the moment because I have to come in here, get enough space off to build the foundation wall, and I've also got to jackhammer some more rock away. But this greenhouse will be sitting at about a southeast orientation. It'll just be a simple high tunnel with double layer poly with a blower, 2 doors on each end, and you'll walk in, and then there'll be 3 foot wide beds on the side, 32 feet long, and then there'll be 2 beds in the center that are 12 feet long that have a bit of gap, so that you have a way to walk in here. But that's coming along. I'm kind of doing work as I need to do it. I actually was in the process of earlier in the week I finished this road project. So this was another mud pit on the property where every time it rained, or especially with snow melt, there's a little bit of a draw here, and this driveway would go down and up, and it was just a big mud pit. So I spent Monday and Tuesday finishing this, bringing in heavy rock material, scraping away my organic soil. That's what that pile is. Putting in broken rock, and then putting in a pipe to cross the area, a little bit of a culvert, if you will, with some river rock, and then topping it up with road crush, and now it's a lot more level, and now water comes and goes away, and we don't have an annoying problem. And what I've been doing a lot lately is stacking functions, and so I needed some rock here, so I actually came and scraped out of here because I need to excavate this as well. So I was just taking rock material here from my excavator and then putting it right over there. And so sometimes I've been stacking functions to just kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will. This is a bunch of the perennial stuff that I pulled out of our property in Kelowna when we sold it. Lots of strawberries. They survived all winter in buckets. It was, I don't know if I mentioned it in one of these YouTube videos, but before we sold our house in September, I went and I pulled out all the runners of the strawberries, and I literally just put them in a bucket with no soil or nothing, and I let it sit there all winter, mostly outside. And my daughter and I potted these up, and almost 100% success rate. So it's pretty amazing, and some of them are coming along really well, but they all have a little crown. They're coming along, and just kind of a testament to how resilient strawberries are, and they really like an alpine climate like we're in. Also got goji berry. These are 3 goji bushes that I've moved. This is their 3rd move now, and they're coming along. They're sprouting new growth. Golden raspberries, sea buckthorns. I've got a blackberry over there that's starting to sprout up, and a number of grapes as well that are all coming along. So a lot of these plants will end up on that area we just were above the new greenhouse site. So this is these are all the raised beds. This is all of them. They're all done. What we're looking at are some of the, actually what we're looking at here specifically are the beds for the special high tunnel where we just were. And these go together. So right here we've got, that's a 2-foot high by 3-foot wide outside dimensions raised bed. That one will couple together with this one. That's why there's sort of just a temporary blocking in here, and it will go together and be effectively a 32-foot wide bed, 2 feet high. And then these beds here are the remaining 2 for the passive solar greenhouse. And so Mitchell's been busy with these for the last 2 or 3 days, and they're all done and they're great. And we've been moving them out of here with the skid steer and just kind of getting them out of the way so that when the greenhouse is built, or actually we'll probably bring them in before the greenhouse is built, but we'll get them down once the foundation's done and then build the bows of the greenhouse on top of that. But that's how we're going to be growing in the passive solar greenhouse and the special high tunnel, just because we're sitting on rock basically. And so I want to have a deep profile of soil in these greenhouses, and underneath these beds will be our radiant floor. So it's going to be just a 1/2-inch PEX connected to our wood boiler, just a thermal heat line that will just zigzag throughout the greenhouse, and they'll be underneath these beds. So this soil at the coldest time in winter will always be at least 1 degree Celsius. So it's working. I've got it all covered up with rock, and it's still coming through really nice, so that's a good sign. But just right around the corner here, I've got this other one. So this is that other one. This one actually took quite a bit of time, and it's not even done. I just started laying down my subgrade crush, and then there'll be a finer grade crush that goes over top of this. I'll have to pack this down too. But this is actually the site that I got all of the soil for that one raised bed that we were looking at in the passive solar greenhouse. Incredible black soil. That's what's been a really neat discovery on this property, is wherever I have water draws, there's soil. And of course that makes sense, right? Because it just keeps drawing down fine particulates over time, and that just builds up. And so when I was doing this one, I was also harvesting soil at the same time. And so you see a little river here, but this was actually all under soil, and it was all very, very saturated. And so I exposed it so that I could see where it was, because I couldn't figure out for the longest time, why is there so much mud here? I didn't really know where the water was. I used my laser level to find the low points, but there was still all this water up here, and the reason is that there's bedrock. So it was hidden in this bedrock area, and then it was just saturating and fanning out. And so this area was such a problem spot for trucks and anybody coming up here. And so I did the same thing that I just showed you up there. I scraped it all away right down to as low as I could get it, put in heavy rock, laid down my pipes, and it's functioning great. We've got water coming in up top, going right across, and coming down below. Again, this one isn't totally finished either, but this is a really good start, and we can pretty much safely drive across this now. So I'm standing on one of my latest road projects. This was a problem area for quite a long time because this is a spillway for the main pond site on this property. So there's a natural pond just right through these deciduous trees, which right now doesn't hold a ton of water because it's not excavated, but I am going to excavate it, and it should hold about 1.5 million liters of water according to my calculations. But this is a natural spillway that comes out. You can kind of see the water coming through, and the problem is when I bought this property, this driveway was already made. You know, I think if I would have bought a raw piece of land and did my own driveways, I would have looked at these things and I would have probably moved the roads according to not crossing these waterways. But this waterway crosses this driveway multiple times, and I'm just going to show you two of them right now. But in the last year I fixed some of the ones on the bottom. And so what I've been doing for my sort of DIY road maintenance projects is using a bunch of my local material. I'm standing on a bunch of crushed rock that I was pulling from my little quarry site down there. All this came from our house excavation site. So what I did with this is I scraped away as much of the organics as I could, the topsoil if you will, because that's what makes the mud. And then I find the lowest points and I lay down weeping tile, and then I come in with loads of rock. And at first I bring in my skid steer bucket loaded with rock, and I hand place big rocks along the weeping tile to hold it where I want it to stay, but also to protect it so that when I come in with bigger loads, I can just kind of wholesale drop large amounts of rock and not worry about smashing up the pipe. One of the biggest challenge that I had with this particular site that I'm standing on is it's very close to level with where this spillway comes out, and I have a sheet of solid bedrock just about an inch below that pipe. In fact, you can actually see some of it right here. It's just pure slate. And so I would happily use culverts if it made sense, but I can't without a lot of effort. And so I found a way to kind of get the best of both worlds, where I can get sort of a culvert effect by just using weeping tile. And so I scrape down as low as I can get. I put down weeping tile in all the low areas, and then I cover it with rock, and then I'll cover some of the where the weeping tile is with landscape fabric after this, and then I'll bring in a subgrade road crush to smooth this out, and then I'll put a finer grade road crush on it afterwards. But so this is finally done. This actually took me all day today. I started it last night, and I've been working on this one all day, and it's not even done. But the worst part is done. I find when you're doing this kind of work, it's sort of exponential, and it's very slow to start. But then once you get a base of your material down, the last little bit of it goes really quickly. When you start bringing in the crush, then it all goes very fast. But getting the placement of the rocks, and I do a lot of just handscaping, if you will, where I come in with rocks, drop rocks, and then I actually just jump out of the machine and I place certain rocks in certain areas to just level it out instead of just coming in and bulldozing it. Because when you're bulldozing big rocks, they'll just scrape other things and make even more of a mess. So there's another one right down here that I want to show you that I worked on as well. All right, folks, well, that was the weekly update for this week. It is April 1st today. It's really feels like the really first day of spring. And if you want to follow along with my daily vlogs, they're all up at fromthefield.tv. And if you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video.